The Electoral College is derived from the 12th Amendment of the Constitution. It states that the electors shall meet in their respective states and vote by ballot for president and vice president. The person having the greatest number of votes shall be president, if such number be a majority of a whole number of electors appointed. And if no person have such majority, then the House of Representatives shall choose immediately, by ballot, the president and vice president.
What is your personal opinion on the Electoral College?
That a lot of people are upset with the Electoral College system because Clinton won the majority vote, and so they think that the Electoral College is broken, that it doesn't help the American people. It was originally established, though, for the exact opposite reason. You know, it was made so that larger votes, like larger states, didn't have a complete say in who became president. It was also because, you know, we didn't have the internet and like mass communication back then, so it would be impossible to have a pure democratic vote. And there was also the fact that initially, before the Electoral College in America, they proposed the idea of electing the president as having it chosen by Congress, but they didn't like the idea of having a small group of people determine the leader of the country.
In most elections, the Electoral College has elected the candidate who received the most popular votes nationwide. Only 5 times in American history has a candidate won the popular vote and lost the election. Andrew Jackson in 1824 to John Quincy Adams, Samuel Tilden in 1876 to Rutherford B. Hayes, Grover Cleveland in 1888 to Benjamin Harrison, Al Gore in 2000 to George W. Bush, and Hillary Clinton in 2016 to Donald Trump.
What do you know about the Electoral College? Like how our voting system works?
Well, I know that, with the Electoral College, the major states, in this country, Ohio is a major state, Florida is one of the major states, Pennsylvania again, but I know in these specific counties, they have these, I guess the delegates have these certain amount of number that these candidates are trying to reach to be able to get that number for that whole entire state itself. So I know that's what these candidates are really trying to get into and trying to win the whole state by getting those certain amount of votes. It could be for the major counties in the particular state itself, whether it be in Pennsylvania or Ohio or Michigan, those type of states like that, even Florida as well.
Most states require that all Electoral College votes go to the candidate who receives the most districts in that state. This means that states that vote reliably for one party or the other often matter less than what is referred to as swing states. Since the current Electoral College system per state is winner-take-all, it doesn't actually matter how much of the popular vote a candidate wins in a state, despite the Electoral College having more representatives for larger states. So, for example, a state like Texas with 38 Electoral College votes might vote mostly Republican, but a Democratic district like Austin wouldn't even get 1 electoral vote. This makes most presidential campaigns much more interested in swing states, as they are ultimately, in our current system, the ones that hold the most sway over political elections.
What do you know about the Electoral College?
Well, I know that the Electoral College is what ultimately gets presidents elected. I know that they're based upon the amount of popular votes that each state gets, and I know that it's a little rigged, for lack of a better word, because of gerrymandering and how they've structured the popular votes within each state as a whole.
Districting is the process by which a state decides what chunks of the state should be considered a single unanimous vote in national and local elections. It affects Congress on several levels, since districts collectively vote on presidential, state, and gubernatorial elections. In some states, like Florida, districting can group all voters against the party in power together in one large district, while creating many surefire districts that will vote them back into office. Districting allowed the 2000 presidential election to come down to 537 Florida votes, despite Al Gore's win of the popular vote. Redistricting is done every 10 years by each state's legislature, almost in complete silence and with no public discourse.
Do you think that if we had a popular vote today, it would change things?
There are certain mindsets within different parts of the country because of just cultural bubbles. If you had to appeal to those people and convince them of your stances, I think that would change a lot as opposed to having to convince a select few, because you'd be convincing a mass instead of a select few.
Although electorates are expected to vote with their districts, there have been instances where they don't vote at all. This is known as a faithless elector. During the 1836 election, Virginia's entire 23-man electoral delegation faithlessly abstained from voting for victorious Democratic vice presidential nominee Richard M. Johnson, due to Johnson's openly admitted long-term interracial relationship with his slave, Julia C. Hinn. In the 2000 election, Washington, D.C. elector Barbara Lett Simmons pledged for Democrats Al Gore and Joe Lieberman cast no electoral votes as a protest of Washington, D.C.'s lack of voting congressional representation.
How do you feel about us using the Electoral College rather than using the popular vote?
You know, everyone was saying, oh, well, Trump's probably going to win the popular vote, so thank God we have this Electoral College. But, you know, now that that didn't happen, that happened the exact opposite. I see all my friends, you know, doing this, trying to be active in getting rid of it. But it's a tool that we can use to distort and manipulate people's votes for either side.
Alexander Hamilton described the framers' view of how electors would be chosen. A small number of persons, selected by their fellow citizens from the general mass, will be most likely to possess the information and discernment requisite to such complicated tasks. When Hamilton and James Madison, two of the most important architects of the Electoral College, saw the winner-take-all approach emerge from each state in the 1789 elections, they protested strongly. Madison and Hamilton both believed this approach violated the spirit of the Constitution. When the Constitution was written, all of its authors assumed individual electors would be elected in their districts, and it was inconceivable a general ticket of electors dictated by a state would supplant the concept.